Hi guys, this is TechAudi. I welcome you to the part 2 of how to create an ASP.NET Web API lookup service. This is the part 2, and in this part I will show you how you can use JavaScript and jQuery to consume your Web API. To do this, first of all, right click on your project and add a new item. Go to Web and select HTML page. You can name your page as index.html. Click Add. Now you have an HTML page created by Visual Studio. So I've created the HTML page and I've entered some HTML code within my page. I have a title called as employee lookup, and within my body tag I have two div elements. Within the div elements I have my h2 tag, and I also have a unordered list with the ID of employees. When I run the get all employees method, I will get a result with all my employees, and I will show that list of employees under this unordered list as a list. And in my second div, I have an input box, that's a text box where the user can enter the employee's ID. And I also have a search button after entering the ID. If when the user clicks search employee, the ID that is specified within the text box, you will the web API method will get the employee with that specific ID and show it under this paragraph tag with the ID of employee. So that's for our HTML code. Now let's write some JavaScript which will help us to retrieve this information and display it within our HTML elements. So first of all, we need to reference our jQuery library in order to use jQuery within our application. And to do that, we can just use the CDN reference that's easily available on W3 School website. And I can just copy this reference from W3, the Google CDN reference for jQuery, and I can just paste it over here. And now under my reference, I can start writing my JavaScript code and within my script tags. So I can just specify here it's a type of text JavaScript, and I can write my code over here. So first of all, I would need to create a variable that will hold the URL to get all my employees. So let's call this URI equals to API / employees. We will use this URI in order to get all the list of all employees. Now let's write some jQuery code. So first of all, we will mention that when our document dot ready function, so when our document is ready, we want to run this particular function. So our function is when the document is ready, we want to send the AJAX request. So we basically are saying that when our document is ready, that means all the elements have been loaded, then you can run this specific function. So the function is jQuery, $ stands for jQuery dot, and run the get JSON method, and we have to specify where to get the JSON from. So we'll get the JSON from this specific URI. So URI, and when it's done, we will run this following function. So what we are doing here is basically when the document is ready and all elements are loaded within our document, we are going to run the jQuery dot get JSON method and specify where we need to get our JSON from. So for that we are going to supply this URI as our parameter. So get the JSON from this URI, which is API/employees. And when the response is a success, we can use the done method that's available under jQuery. Now note that within this done method, when the response is success, run the done method, and within the done method, we are going to specify what we want to do with the data. So we want to run a function. Let's be an anonymous function and pass the data that we received from the getJSON to this done method, the function within this done method. And now this data is basically a collection of all employees. So response was a success, and we are running a callback function where we are supplying the data that we received from our response to our done method. And now we have a data that is basically a collection of employees. Now we want to get each employee from that collection and display the information of each employee under this unordered list as a list item. For to do that, first of all, we need to iterate through this each item within this collection, and to do that, we have a method available under jQuery called as jQuery dot each. As the name suggests, it will iterate through each item within this collection. So we have to specify where you want to iterate. So we want to iterate on this specific collection data, and how you want to iterate. We want to iterate using this using the key value pair. So key and value. Okay. And now when this jQuery.each method iterates through each item within our collection, we want to get each item and add it to our unordered employees list. And to do that, we will write another jQuery code here. So jQuery, and what we are basically doing is we are creating list of employees, correct? So what we are doing here is we are creating a list of employees using jQuery, and we are adding each employee to this list: employee 1, employee 2, employee 3. So to create a list, we need to create a list tag. So jQuery, we will create the list tag, and then within this list tag we need to specify what text we want to display. So basically the text that we want to display is the value that we get from each iteration over our collection. So I'm going to specify what text I want to display, the text attribute for our HTML element ly tag, and I'm going to create a method called format item, which will basically add each value within this specified text attribute. Now this format method, I haven't yet created the format method. So I am going to create this format method now. So let's write a function, and I am going to create this format method. So what we are going to do is we are basically going to pass each value that we get from our iteration to this method, and this method will format the text within the ly tag, and it will present it to the ly tag. So what this method is basically going to do is it's going to return each value dot name, value dot So value dot first name, and then so here it's going to return. So I can say first name is concatenate value dot first name, and then I can say last name is concatenate value dot last name. So these are basically the properties that we created for our employee. And now we also want to show the email. So email is value dot email. Now guys, I have forgot to specify the ID. So let's say ID is value dot ID. I think that should be it. So what I'm basically doing with this method is I am formatting the information that I received and displaying it the way I want it to be displayed rather than mm, showing it the default way how JSON received elements have been displayed. So I want to format it nicely and then display it on my HTML page. So whenever each value will be received through the iteration, the value will be passed as a parameter to the format item, and the each employee's information will be formatted and returned like the way I want it under this text attribute. So after it has been formatted, I am just going to run the append to method, which basically will append each item to the specified uh, element within my DOM. So I want to display each element within this UL within this unordered list. So I want to copy this ID of my unordered list and pass it over here. So that should be it. So for displaying the list of all employees. Now let's go ahead and test our function and see if everything works fine. So go and run your application. Now our default page is index.html, and something went wrong here. So let's go ahead and test our code. Something is wrong over here. Okay, I made a mistake over here. It should be append to. I forgot to add the D. So I'm going to run this application now, and oh, there you go. And I can see a list of all my employees within my employees unordered list, and each element is being created as a list the way we specified within our jQuery tag over here. So now let's go ahead and write a function within jQuery that will search each employee by their specified ID. Because we have not yet written this function, we don't see anything happening over here. So let's write this function. So we have finished writing the function which will get us all the employees. Now let's write the function that will search employee based on the ID that's provided. So for that function, we have already created an on-click function here, but we have not written any code for that. So let's write a function with the name of find employee, and whenever the search employee button is clicked, this function will be triggered. So now to write the function, first of all, let's create a variable and call it ID, which will store the value of the ID that's provided within the text box. So jQuery and get the element with the ID of employee ID and get the that's the value. Now run the dot JSON method from the specified URI. And as you know, when we want to search the employees, we have to / provide the ID, correct? So in that case, we want to concatenate / and then concatenate the ID, which is basically the value that we will receive from the text box. So the value that we receive from the text box will be concatenated to this / and then we will run the done method. When a response is a success, we will call the done method, and within the done method we will run a callback function. The callback function will contain the data that we received. Now let's write a code what we want to do with this data. So jQuery, we want to display the information of this employee under this paragraph tag, so with the ID of employee. So all we do is we just paste for the ID there. So get the element with the ID dot text method. So the text that is within this paragraph tag, we will then run our format item method, which is basically going to format the values that we received, and it's going to, in this case we are going to specify data as the parameter because we are receiving only one employee, not so. And then now this was for done. In case if, so we have written the code in case if our response was success, and if it was success, it will display the employee with that specific ID within this employee paragraph tag. Now, what if the response is a fail and the user is trying to search an employee that doesn't exist? Let's say the user is trying to search an employee with an ID of 10 and 10 doesn't exist in my list. So obviously it's going to return an error. So we have to write a code that will handle this error. So we will use the dot fail method within jQuery. And what this dot fail method will do, it will handle the failure of the response. So dot fail, and then we will write a callback function with no name, but this function will have three parameters from our response headers, that is jq, xhr, the second would be the text status, and the error message. These three parameters will be supplied from the response header. It will, the dot fail function will gather these parameters or this information from the response header that we received from a get method. Now what we would do is basically we will uh, get the element with my ID employee, but this time I don't have any employee information to show. Instead, I'm going to show the error that I received, the error message. So dot text, and I'm going to show the error message. So concatenate the error message that I received. Now that's it for the find employee method. Now let's go ahead and run our application and test and see if we are able to search the employee with specific ID. So let's search employee with ID 8, search, Yes, we can find the employee ID 7. Yes, we can find the employee. That means our response was success. Now let's search an employee with ID 10. And we obviously know the response will be a failure because the employee with ID 10 doesn't exist in our list. So let's click search and we get the error message which is not found. So that's it for this video tutorial on how to create ASP.NET Web API lookup service. Thank you for watching.